This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, let's talk a little football. Daniel Oyefusi's ready to go, fresh from the locker rooms. Let's bring him aboard. Dolphins beat writer for the Miami Herald. Follow him on Twitter like I and so many other Dolphins fans do at Daniel Oyefusi. Daniel, how you feeling, my man?
Doing good, doing good. Been a long time no see. How you doing?
Doing good. Long time no see. Thank you for joining us. I think this is like the second time this season, maybe. Something like that. I think this season you've joined us. We had some news coming out of the locker rooms with Teron Armstead. Fill us in.
Yeah, so locker clean out day. Guys kind of saying they're kind of like the last day of school, and it's the last time we're going to talk to a lot of these guys. Maybe until the spring. Some of these guys are going on to different teams entering free agency. So Teron Armstead obviously is still under contract next year. He's asked about his future. And he said, he's going to have to, think about his future. And, there was a apropos follow-up, when fans hear that, they're going to say, retirement. So is that something that's under consideration? And he goes, I love the game too much. But, he wants to chase a ring. He wants to pursue a ring. But at the same spot, he's getting older up there in age. The injuries have been wearing on him. I think, I don't want to put too much into that because it is emotional. Guys are still, a lot of those guys are still kind of torn about the way the season ended because they didn't expect it to end in the first round. So I don't want to take too much of that. But it is notable because he is getting up there in age. He is a guy who has dealt with a lot of injuries over his career and obviously in his 2 years in Miami. So that stood out to me for sure.
Well, but you're kind of leaving out the comment to me that there was the money line comment of it, and he said, "I don't want to be the guy chasing a ring when my body tells me that I can't."
Yeah, so you have to find that balance, And again,
okay,
he's
what more signs do you need that your body has already told you you can't do this anymore? I mean, you cannot stay healthy for the life of God. You cannot stay healthy. So I'm wondering, what more signs does he need in order to realize that his body cannot hold up in the NFL anymore? That's the part. I know you really can't answer that.
But there's also dollar signs involved too, at play as well. And I think
that's the only thing that is motivating, bro. That's it. You're coming back for the money, dude. Don't tell me that your body's shit because your body already has given out on you. You can't play 8 straight games ever in your life. So that's the funny part. It's like you're telling us that you don't want to be the guy that your body's telling you can't. Well, that's already happened. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. It's a tough kind of spot to be in because these guys are gladiators, they're warriors. They want to be out there and play. Tron, he did say he still has a lot of love for the game, but like you said, there is that balance in that time where maybe you have to say, hey, enough is enough. Again, I don't want to make too much of it because it's like a lot of these guys, like they were not ready. Like, after the game, McDaniel was like, I wasn't ready to talk about the future. A lot of these guys weren't ready to talk about the future too. Like, I know I just had a long talk with Cater, and he was still frustrated about his play personally. He was frustrated about how the season ended, about how they played against some of the better teams in the NFL. But obviously, that's something that we're going to have to keep our eye out for because, Teron has dealt with a lot of injuries, and I don't think that the Dolphins are in a spot where they could save some money. If he does retire, they could save some money off of him. I don't know whether that's going to be a big discussion this offseason. We'll definitely have to wait to see.
Yeah. When you look at it, just out of curiosity, I don't know if you looked at it already. If he retires, do the Dolphins get any kind of a break salary wise?
Well, when you do retire, unless it's a medical retirement, you do forfeit that salary. So, I mean, it actually kind of benefit the Dolphins if he was to retire as opposed to just outright cutting him. If there's guaranteed money or I guess signing bonus money that counts on the cap, obviously, that would hit and they could divide it up to 2 years. But if you do retire, if a player does decide to retire without any medical issue or anything like that, they do forfeit that salary.
Yeah, I don't see him doing it. I just don't. It's too much money. I guess he's talking a good game and all that, but he does care for the game and his team because there's no way he plays with all those injuries if he didn't give a shit. I've been around this for a long time. I've seen guys that don't care, and they're they're quick to check out on anything. That guy never checks out. So
Yeah.
that I will give him all the respect in the world, but his body's already telling him that, you can't do it. So that part is kind of now your conversation with Cater. I'm a big Cater guy, but I just think he really struggled in zone. And he is such a physical corner. I think he's more of a man-on-man guy. And I always compare him to this cornerback Browning that used to play with the Seattle Seahawks for many years. And he used to get a lot of penalties. He was a good corner, but he was so handsy that he would you knew that Browning was going to pick up a penalty at least almost every game, pretty much. It was just kind of a thing that came with him. You knew he was a hell of a player, but penalties came with it. And I kind of looked Cater in that kind of a Browning mold. But I think that because of the change in defense, putting him more in zone, I think it was a huge adjustment for him. And he didn't adjust well, obviously, to it. Your thoughts on that and where Cater stands?
Yeah, that's one of the things I asked him. I was like, first off, I said, how would you kind of just rate your season? He kind of put his head on. He's like, terrible. That's the first thing that came to mind. I said, was it a scheme thing? Was it going from more man to more zone? He was just like, no, because like in any defense, you're gonna have to play some level of man and zone. He was like, I had a lot of high expectations for myself entering the season. He said he thought that it started off well, but then something just wasn't clicking. I kept on saying that, like something just wasn't clicking. And I said, hey, do you think that teams were targeting you more because X and Jalen were out there? And he goes, no, because if anything, those guys should have helped me. He was just like, I shouldn't have, like those guys. That should have made things easier on my plate. He's like, I was targeted a lot more as a rookie in the role that I was in. He was like, something just wasn't clicking, and I kind of have to figure that out. So he's the first. I know he got a lot of heat on social media. He'll be the first to tell you. I mean, he was the first to tell me he did not have a good season by his standard at all. And I think that that is something that they're gonna have to look at because I mean, they gave him a long leash. Like there were a lot of calls to put McNeedham in there, who's excelled in a slot role. They never did that. They stuck with them all the way. But I think as part of personnel discussions this offseason, they unfortunately gonna have to ask themselves, why wasn't he as effective in the previous scheme as he was in this one, and do we potentially need to bring in somebody to compete for that slot corner role?
All right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think because he had to play a lot of zone, I think that was something that was. It's almost like he was able to get in a groove when he was playing man, and then the times you would switch the zone, you're still in a groove, so it doesn't bother you. But practically full-time zone, it almost felt like he just never looked comfortable out there. You know what I mean? Hopefully, like with the offense, although it didn't really happen in certain cases, but you would hope that the second year being in the defense that he would then play again. He's still a young corner from Division II, so we got to kind of slow down a little bit here. He's still terrific at tackling. He'll hit the crap out of you. He's physical. There's a lot to work with there. He's super athletic. I like Cater, man. I just think he's still raw and kind of learning this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we do sometimes kind of forget that. He was an undrafted rookie out of a Division II program. He was a revelation as a rookie, and the way that they talked to him, I mean, a lot of these guys were like, "This is one of the breakout players on that defense." And that was a defense that had Jalen Phillips and all these Juwan Howard and all these different guys. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Sometimes that ascension isn't linear. Sometimes you do have some stretches where you're not playing to your potential. And I asked him, I was just like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Man, I just needed to get a reset." I think that's what he needs, a reset, and come back and then just kind of hit the ground running again.
Daniel, I don't know if you've listened at all last couple weeks, but obviously I'm a big Tua guy, okay? Yep. And I'm still a big Tua guy, and he played like shit this year. He made some bad decisions, some bad throws. I'm not going to defend that shit, okay? I'm a Cater guy. I'm not going to defend his season. I'm not giving up on him whatsoever. And I'm not giving up on Mike McDaniel. But I'll tell you that Mike McDaniel is your main problem right now. He doesn't know how to run a game. He doesn't have awareness. Examples I'll give you, whether it's having Chubb out there with, a couple minutes left in a blowout and you lose him, or 2 weeks ago, Tyreek doesn't catch the ball, the point hits the floor, But the coach has the red flag in his hand, but he's waiting for it, and these guys are lackadaisical about it, and it gave him plenty of time to throw the flag to review it. Whereas a smart team, an alert team, a well-coached team is running to the line to make the next play, to not give the coach any time to think about it. Now, if he throws and stops you, great. But it shows that the team, they're constantly making mistakes, pre-snap penalties. Players are constantly dropping footballs. There's no repercussions from it, clearly. I could just go over a laundry list of mistakes that he's constantly making, a lack of awareness. And so now we have the Jordan Love thing now going on, correct?
I mean, I wouldn't say Jordan Love. I think Tua has shown, prior to.
No,
Prior
but
to this.
let me finish here on Jordan Love.
Okay,
so now we got the fans and some media members talking about Jordan Love. So yesterday, he goes 16 of 21 for 272 and 3 touchdowns. But do you know what the Packers also did, Daniel, that Miami doesn't? They ran the ball 33 times for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. Miami ran the ball 18 times for 76 yards, and in many times, as you saw in that one drive where Mostert gets 8, 3, 4, and 6 yards, you're on 31 and 4th and 1, and he gets cute with passes when, brother, just hand the ball off and keep the drive alive. So last week against the Bears, Jordan Love, 27 of 32, right? 316. They ran the ball 27 times for 124 yards in a win. They beat Minnesota. They 24 of 33, 256, 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball 39 times for 177 yards. They beat Carolina 33 to 30. 17 of 28, 219, 2 touchdowns. Good numbers for Jordan Love, but they ran the ball 34 times, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. They lost 4 weeks ago to Tampa Bay 34 to 20. He threw the ball nearly 40 times, 29 of 39, 284 and 2 touchdowns. How do you think the running game did in that one? 17 for 60. They lost again to the Giants, 24 to 22. 24 of 39, 218, a touchdown, an interception, decent numbers. 25, 123, 1 touchdown. They weren't dominant on the ground. You understand? So and I could go through the numbers, and I could go through Tua's numbers where they don't run enough. They don't run the game enough. So we got to deal with this whole Jordan Love thing, and what people don't understand is that Matt LaFleur is actually doing what Mike McDaniel should be doing for Tua. He's got Tua playing like a gunslinger. In order to do that, you've got to have Dan Marino or Brett Favre. You've got to have a gunslinger in there. That's not who Tua is. And so for me right now, my real problem is Mike McDaniel either has to give up the play calling or has to have somebody else next in the sidelines who's managing the game while he calls plays. But he has a problem having the understanding of the periphery of the game and then the play calling. He cannot do both. And yesterday, Tua, I know it's a long question. Yesterday, at his press conference, he completely trashed McDaniel without even knowing. He goes, well, sometimes we get the plays in late. We can line up at times. We can adjust the protections and all that. Do you think that puts the quarterback in an advantage? If the play is in late, he can't change the play because it's too late. He can't really adjust the coverages because it's too late, because there's only a couple seconds left on the clock. Too much shit goes on that is poorly managed by Mike McDaniel. Your thoughts?
All right. Well, I'll preface my comments with this, and I kind of want to respond with a question to you. McDaniel is not perfect. He's not infallible. Like he has room for a complaint. There's reason to point blame at him. And I think we also need to understand that he is still growing as a young head coach, as a young play caller. So with that being said, my question to you is on the play calling situation. There's no doubt that not every call is going to be perfect. I honestly, over the past 2 years, especially with covering McDaniel, I have grown less reluctant to directly criticize play calling when there is evidence that execution has not been to a T. So I think that with that, with play calling, it's easy to say in hindsight he should have done this, he should have done that. I will say, yeah, when they got to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, to call 2 straight pass plays, that did kind of, I was thinking like at least one time, but on that 4th down play when they ran the little pick to try to get Tyreek, I think that there was an opportunity to make a play. Now we can disagree on that, but I think
they covered that play. That play was well covered by Detroit, actually.
Oh no, he was free. No, I think Tyreek was free, but I mean it's a moot point at this point. On the bigger picture issue with play calling, my question is, who are you giving? Who are you relinquishing that role to, and are we confident that they are going to call a better game? Because if it's just because you want them to run more, then well, all right, then give it to Darrell Bevell, give it to Frank Smith, and tell them to run 40 times. I don't know that just giving it to somebody and then having McDaniel just be this guy that kind of twiddles his thumbs and calls when to challenge plays and when to go for 2. Like, I don't know if that's really I don't know if they're playing in the divisional round just because you make that change. I think that he does that. I mean, that is something that we're going to talk to him in a couple hours. That is something, again, that we're going to need to ask him, what do you do to make sure the operation is smoother? Because when they started playing these good teams, they kind of reverted back to that stuff that we saw in the past. Now, McDaniel, it's a separate thing, but it's also tied in with Tua, because I think that obviously McDaniel has done great things for Tua. He's built a scheme which accentuates Tua's talents, and which, I mean, we've seen the best version of, or to date, we've seen the best version of Tua. I mean, to lead the league in passing yards, to break records that we haven't seen touched since then. I mean, we got to give McDaniel a lot of credit for that. We got to give Tua a lot of credit for staying healthy and improving his game. I think that, and this is what I asked McDaniel in the post-game presser, is there a fundamental flaw with this offense, or is this something that just needs a minor tweak? Have we seen the ceiling? Honestly, and I kind of said this to people. This kind of reminds me of the Jared Goff, Sean McVay situation in Los Angeles, where you build a scheme and you bring in a scheme that brings the best out of a player, but then you're starting to question, have we maximized the skill set and the talent of this player? And I think that after we've seen Tua go through some of these late season struggles, like, that is the question. Have they maximized his talents? Now, I mean, obviously that's a 5th-year option coming up with the final year of his rookie deal. But we did see sometimes like those limitations and those questions that we've had, playing out of structure. When things break down, can you make things work? Like, my thing is, everything's not going to be perfect for you. Yes, you need a supporting cast, but there's going to be times where guys aren't in the right spot, or when the defense covers everything perfectly. And sometimes you have to work, out of your means, beyond your means, and make things shake. Now, I'm not asking Tua to be somebody that he's not, but I have to acknowledge that.
Whoa. But McDaniel's asking him to be something he's not.
How so? How so?
My brother, do you watch the passing chart? We've got the toughest passing chart in the NFL. You know that, right? Nobody throws deeper, more deep balls, tougher passes than the Miami Dolphins.
I mean, I think we definitely saw adjustments this year where they started, it used to be just spam in the middle of the field, and teams obviously were adjusting to that. So we started to see them hit the flats, hit the screens, but then teams adjusted to that. So there is that give and take. I mean, they threw a ton of screen passes in Kansas City.
No, but it's short passes and slants and all that kind of. They don't do enough of that. They don't use everybody else on the offense, dude. They force the ball to Tyreek and Waddle is what they do. And how many times? Let me ask you something. Yeah. How many times did you see this year they're throwing a Tyreek and Waddle and it's in between 2 and 3 guys?
Well, it's funny because I just spoke to River about that and was asking, are the game plans sound, or like you're going into the games with like a solid plan? And obviously, River has been with McDaniel in San Francisco. He's going to bat by him. And he said it's tough because, like, when you have a guy like Tyreek, I mean, like, just naturally, like the game plan is going to be to get him the ball, and for good reason. Because I mean, who else are you going to throw it to? Obviously, Jalen Waddle is talented. Achane is talented. Most of it is talented. But like obviously, you're going to throw the ball to Tyreek. I think that there are times where they can kind of spread the wealth a little bit, but also I think that might be a personnel thing. I think that they might need to bring a third pass catcher. They're trying to make Achane that at some points. It might be a personnel thing. That's the question. Like, how much of this is personnel? How much is his actual scheme? Because if it's personnel, all right, we can move some cap around, make some cap room, and maybe bring in a guy. But if it's scheme and it's something that, all right, like we need to. I think they do need to develop the scheme a little bit more. I think that they need to get a little more of a power run game, because like I know that they want to get it to the outside.
Look, they need to add the short passing game, Daniel. They will get the playmaking tight end this year. I guarantee you that. They tried to get Waller 2 years ago. They wanted Laporta in the draft. They will get a tight end this year. They've been trying the last 2 years. This offense is built for a tight end, a playmaking one that will alleviate some of the pressure off of Tua and give them another option. But the thing that I don't like about this offense, and hindsight is 2020. Now you realize the 2,000-yard stuff is silliness. Why? You overwork Tyreek.
The funny thing is, in terms of snap counts percentage, he played at the lowest snap percentage of his career. I mean, he was only playing 60 to 65% of the snaps, when most wide receivers are playing like every down. But in terms of like the actual workload when he was on the field, they were trying to maximize his talents when he was on the field.
But that's my point. You're still throwing the ball to him too much. It's still the act of going through the motion of playing the game. And so the chasing of 2,000 yards broke him down. The chasing of 2,000 yards, he clearly cannot concentrate because he drops too many big passes. He doesn't just drop passes. He and Waddle have a special skill that they drop the most important passes of every game, pretty much. Touchdowns, third downs, move the chains. It's amazing to me. I mean, Waddle came back this
year. But is that a McDaniel? Is that McDaniel's fault?
That's McDaniel.
I don't know. I think that sometimes I think at some point we got to put responsibility on the players.
Hold on a second. Pre-snap penalties. That's all McDaniel.
That's different.
That's all McDaniel. All these mistakes that are constantly being made. You know, as you heard on Hard Knocks from Tyreek, if you make a mistake, fuck it. I mean, you know, if you make a mistake, I would love to hear that around Shula or Spo or Riley or somebody like, if you make a mistake, fuck it. There seems to be a very lackadaisical approach to making mistakes there. Like everything's forgivable. And that's, I think, the problem on that team. That's why there's mistakes everywhere, from drop passes to pre-snap penalties to the worst timing to come up with like this Christian Wilkins one, just the shit that happens constantly on this team. And it's every single week. It's an undisciplined team under Mike McDaniel. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
That's a fair point.
It's an undisciplined team. Yeah. They make a lot of mistakes. They shoot themselves in the foot all the time. They got to play cleaner football, dude.
No, that's a fair point, because when Flo was here, they were the most disciplined team. They led the league in fewest penalties.
Because they didn't want to run the ball.
But my thing is, are we saying we got a Cam McDaniel, or
No.
I think we can have a little bit of balance. We can have a little balance. I think that everyone would say that they underachieved. 2 years without a playoff win, I think we'd all say that they underachieved.
I'll give you a break last year. Because you were with Skyler. This year I can't give you a break because you again were unprepared. But I will tell you this: we have reached the fork in the road with Mike McDaniel.
I would say the honeymoon. I think the honeymoon phase is definitely over. I would say
it's over. And if it's the same year next year, he's fired. He's fired. If it's the same shit that you keep making mistakes, people are dropping passes. You can't line up right. You can't get plays in on time. You can't win a challenge. You are unprepared for certain things. If this shit happens at the end of the year, it will be his last year. I guarantee you that.
Well, I don't want to go on absolutes because I think everything deserves nuance, and especially I know we're mainly talking about the offensive side of the ball, but when you look at this team, I think we do have to acknowledge that 6 defensive guys out for the first round playoff game. Like that schematically changed what they were able to do. But the offense, I think that is what is most concerning right now. The fact that in the biggest game of the year, you're only missing 2 defensive stars. I know everybody's banged up, so like I don't like they had the guys, they had their core guys besides pretty much Connor Williams to only score 7 points. That was disappointing. Now the question is again. I think McDaniel does deserve some responsibility and some blame, but I don't think it's all on him. And I think that as we go into this offseason, that's the question. Is it personnel? Is it scheme? Is it Tua? Is it whatever the case may be? I think it's a little bit of everything, but the question that they need to figure out is, what is the easiest thing to change that can result in tangible growth? Because McDaniel, I mean, like just giving up the play calling, I don't know if that's gonna fix everything and make them a Super Bowl team.
What do you see? What do you think they must fix? What's your solution?
I think that there was tangible growth and adjustments from McDaniel, maybe not in all of the biggest moments, but I did see some changes in overall scheme, in-game adjustments, evolution over the course of the year. And that's the one thing that River said that stood out to me the most. He was just like, for us, it was, over the course of the year, making enough changes. He was like, it's just something about those good teams just had a beat on us. And again, I think we have to remember that this is just a coach that just finished his second year calling plays. There's room for growth with him. What I would do, I think what I would do is based on what you realistically can do. And I think we have to acknowledge that their cap situation isn't all that great. I tend to think that you try to run it back, especially if you feel that Tua is the guy, you try to run it back. I think there definitely needs to be some personnel change. They got to bring in a third wide receiver because, first off, if your teams are making adjustments to take out Tyreek and Jalen, so you need a third guy to be a reliable pass catcher. And honestly, just to kind of spread the wealth, like you said, I think they need to bring in a third pass catcher. I think that they need to diversify the run game where like they're not spamming the outside runs, and when they actually want to run inside, they have the wherewithal to do that. That might result in, they need to upgrade the offensive line. I don't know what Connor Williams, we weren't able to talk to him in the locker room cleanout, but I don't know when he's going to be ready. You're going to need to bring in a legitimate center because I don't know if you can go in 2024 with Liam as your starting guy. They need to re-sign Rob Hunt if possible, and make sure that this is an offense that can beat you in a multitude of ways. Because when push came to shove, like when I looked at that playoff game, I was like, the only way that you're going to be able to come out of it is if you can run the ball 40. Like that was my thought. I was like, run the ball 35, 40 times, keep Tua out of these obvious passing situations, and get out of the coldest game in franchise history still alive. And it's like it seemed like that wasn't the game plan, but it seemed like they just couldn't do it. They didn't have it in them. Like, yeah, they broke off some 8-yard runs, some 3-yard runs here, but they didn't really have it in them to run it 35 times a game. And whether that was McDaniel's hubris or ego or whatever, maybe just his lack of belief, they weren't able to get it done. So they got to diversify that offensive passing game and that offensive running game, and make sure that when they play like the good teams, like you can put 70 up against Denver, but when you're playing Kansas City, you can only put up 7. When you're playing Baltimore, you can only put up 19 or whatever it may be. Like, what does that mean? Like, yeah, you can score against the terrible teams, but if you can't put anything to show for against the better teams, like, where are you? I mean, like, I can't say this is an elite team. They're not an elite team. They're not a bad team, but they're kind of stuck in this kind of state of like, all right, they're cool, like they're fine. I think that's a terrible state to be in. At least if you're bad, you have means to get bad. You're picking at the top of the draft. If you're just kind of in this first round exit every year, like it's annoying. It's kind of hard to see where the room for growth is.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this. Plenty have gotten off the Tua bandwagon. Your thoughts? Is Tua the guy? Or you think he's not the guy and they need to move on?
This is the thing about it, and I alluded to this before. Tua is never going to be a quarterback that can run around, escape the pocket, scramble, drill, do all that stuff that you see Josh Allen.
Drew Brees, he's Tom Brady, bro. He's not going to move around. He's a statue. Yes.
Yeah. So my thing is, and it goes back to this question: has McDaniel, and do you believe that McDaniel has reached his ceiling with Tua in this scheme? That's the question. If so, you do have to have that tough conversation of like, is it worth a long-term deal? If not, you keep on pushing, you keep on moving forward, you potentially, get extended. Now the question is like, how do the Dolphins feel, and what is it going to take?
I'm asking you, bro. I'm asking you. Is Tua the guy or not?
The guy to lead them to a Super Bowl?
Yeah. Is he the franchise guy or not? Is Daniel Oyefusi staying with Tua, or does he say the Dolphins have reached as you're saying, they've reached this potential. They need to move on.
Oh,
no fence straddling on this show, bro. No fence straddling.
I would say that I think that there's still a high level they can reach with him. I think that I don't think he's going to be the guy to carry them on his own, but I think that you can build more. I think there's room for growth in this scheme, and you can build more around him in order to make things easier on him and allow him to be his best self. Like Tua shouldn't have thrown 40 times in that game. Like he shouldn't have been put in a situation where he has to throw 40 times in that game. No, I've seen teams reach the Super Bowl with less talented quarterbacks. But
Peyton Manning couldn't throw 10 fucking yards, bro, with Denver. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL history to win a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, bro. Peyton Manning, the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. You can win with him. Yeah, you got to have a hell of a defense.
I mean, it's definitely got 6 guys out, so – but I think there's room for growth for sure.
Okay. Follow him on Twitter at Daniel Oyefusi. Catch his work there at the Miami Herald. Daniel, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
For sure. Anytime.
You got it. All right.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.